Welcome to Western Door Paranormal. My name is Tony Burtis, lead investigator. Tonight, our investigation takes us to Cuylerville, New York, to what's known as the Cuylerville Torture Tree. Now, the name of the park that's located on is called Boyd Parker Park, and it's named that for a good reason. Now, this here land that we're on is Little Beardstown. It was a Native American village. Now, this also marks the westernmost point of the American Revolution. This is where Generals Sullivan and Clinton's army is the furthest north they got. Now, what makes this area here so historically significant and special, besides the fact that it marks that, the area was marked with the blood of Lieutenant Boyd and Sergeant Parker. How did this work out to that way, you might ask? Well, it's pretty simple. The soldiers were ambushed, and Boyd and Parker were captured. They were ambushed by the Mohawk Indians. Now, they were brought to this site to be interrogated to find out the exact location of Sullivan Clinton's army. Now, they weren't just interrogated as we might know today. These two soldiers, these two heroes of the American Revolution, were tortured on this very spot. They were brutally beaten by the Native Americans, and the Tories that were here also interrogated them. Now, how were they interrogated, you might ask? There was several different methods that they used to try and get the information out of these two guys. They removed their fingernails, they removed their toenails, eyelids, they beat the hell out of them, and they stripped them of their clothing. They made them starve. They also hacked their genitals off, but just enough to keep them still attached to their body. Now, these two patriots still wouldn't talk. They still couldn't get the information out of these guys. So, you might ask yourself, exactly what did they do as an encore to try and get both of them to talk? Well, they decided to cut them in a way to remove their intestines. They dragged Lieutenant Boyd and Sergeant Parker to this location over here. Now, this here is the torture tree. Now, these two patriots were lashed right to the torture tree. They were lashed to the torture tree by their intestines. Unheard of. Is my guess that they might have been lashed right on this spot. They were lashed, they were beaten, and they were left out here to suffer until they talked. Well, I have a funny feeling that they probably at this point couldn't talk if they wanted to. They were in such shock. The human body can only tolerate so much. Now, the question I have, before I go any further, is this tree is a living thing. Is it possible that this tree absorbed the anguish, the pain, and the suffering, and the blood of Boyd and Parker? Well, one of the things that leads me to think this is possible, if you take a look up here on this tree, you have what looks like a perfect bust of a man. You see the top has got the twisted expression of pain and suffering. To the left and right are what looks like possible handprints. And of course, this could be the shoulders, the chest, or whatever have you. Now, I'm not saying that that's paranormal. I'm not saying that in any respect as far as that. It could be matrixing. I'm a big fan of matrixing, where if you look at something long enough, it takes on what you want to see. But I ask you to judge that for yourself for a moment when you look at this tree. When you think of the two patriots that were actually lashed to this tree with the inhuman suffering, lashed to a living thing, is it possible that this tree absorbed all of that suffering and left its mark on here for people who would come by here for years and years and years after, so they would remember? Well, when they were done, they took Boyd and Parker from this tree. They dragged them by their intestines, pretty much ripping their heart out in the process. At this point, they've had enough of them. You know, they're figuring whatever. So they killed them both. They beheaded both of the soldiers. They say you still can't find the head of one of them. Only one head was recovered. Now, there's a little burial mound up here. When the American soldiers came here and they found the mutilated bodies of Lieutenant Boyd and Sergeant Parker, they burned Little Beardstown in retaliation, because it was a settlement that was supportive of, you know, the English at the time. It was war. They also found the head of one of them on a spit, on a stick. Well, of course, they took them and they gave them a proper burial in a little mound over here that we'll show you in a little bit. So, yeah, it's the northwesternmost point of the American Revolution, but it was marked by the blood of Boyd and Parker. Now, what would an event like this do to an area, you might ask? You have the Indian village that was here, that got burned to the ground. You had the suffering of Boyd and Parker. Now, there are a few things that people still say happen out here. One of the things that happens, they say you can still hear the screams of Boyd and Parker. I say that that's probably a residual haunt. A residual haunt is something that goes over and over and over, whether you're there or not. There's also, people say they see shadow people darting from here and there. That could be an intelligent haunt. Is the shadows the Native Americans still scurrying to try and save their burning village? Are they still upset that no matter what, they lost all this and weren't even able to get Boyd and Parker to talk? Well, those are the things we're going to try and find out tonight. Now, have I ever had any experiences out here in Boyd Parker? Yes, we have. But before I tell you about my experiences that I had in Boyd Parker, I want to bring your attention to the marker over here with the American flag. Now, this is where they temporarily interred Boyd and Parker. In 1847, Boyd and Parker were reinterred with full military honors at Mount Hope Cemetery. Now, what have we experienced out here? Last time I was out here without the cameras rolling, we were doing the investigation. You were able to actually see orbs in the tree lines, kind of darting and moving around. We heard some weird things in the tree line. Of course, that could be animals. The main event we heard, across that road, we heard what sounded like the clip-clop of horses, or at least a horse, coming along the street, and we heard the smush of its hooves all the way into the tree line. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to come out here, we're going to try and document if these things still continue. We're going to try and document, is Boyd Parker Park still echoing with the past? Are the spirits of the Indians here still looking to make somebody talk? Are Boyd and Parker trying to tell their story? Well, tonight we have the teams, we have the gear. We're going to give this a good look-see. So I think it's going to be a great investigation. I'm ready. Okay, what I have here is some actual literature on the pain and suffering that Boyd and Parker suffered in this area and at this tree. Now, when I read this to you, I want you to reflect on the power of the human spirit and how much it can take before it finally breaks. Lieutenant Thomas Boyd and Sergeant Michael Parker had been taken to prisoner and moved to Genesee Castle. There they had been questioned by Joseph Brandt, a Mohawk Indian with an English name, John Butler, an American loyal to the Crown, both known for savage attacks on American settlements, and Chief Littlebeard of the Senecas. According to some reports, they did not talk, but Butler's report gave accurate details of Sullivan's troops and their movements. Bryant and Butler then leave, giving the two soldiers to the Indians. The two were taken to a large oak tree, today called the Torture Tree, and stripped naked. They were then whipped until their backs were covered with welts and bruises. Next, the nails were pulled from each finger and toe. They cut off their right ears, then their noses, then their tongues. Their right eyes were gouged from their sockets and left hanging. They mutilated their genitals until they were attached to their bodies by only a foot-long strands of flesh. In spite of these inhuman and revolting tortures, the design was to keep the victims alive as long as possible. The final acts of cruelty came when the two men had their abdomens cut open and their intestines cut from the stomach. The severed end was fastened to the tree, and the men were driven around the tree, their intestines being pulled out as they went. Their hearts were ripped from their chests, and they were finally beheaded. Boyd's head was placed on a spear and used to lead a dance around the tree. The night of torture finally ended with the approach of Sullivan's army. Lieutenant Boyd's partially skinned head was found on a log. Sergeant Parker's head was never found. The bodies were buried at the junction of two small creeks about 50 feet from the tree. General Sullivan ordered the complete destruction of Genesee Castle and all its orchards and crops. When the Indians returned, they said there was not enough to keep a child one day from perishing from hunger. Who was closest to me?
Nobody.
Okay, something just touched a small on my back. I smell real sweet. I don't know, tobacco smell. I smell it too.
Chunk.
You have the electro cigarette. Now,
I haven't hit it in a couple minutes though.
Would that smell? I don't know. May I?
That's like a vanilla smell. Let the battery kick on first, hang on. Now go ahead.
Here.
Smell it now.
Possible. But something lightly touched a small on my back. I'm not even kidding. In any case, when you're outdoors like that and the weather cooperates, it really helps out a lot. It wasn't too hot. It got really chilly toward the later part of the evening, but as long as you dress for an investigation like this one, you should be just fine. Now, this investigation I liked because it also had some good historical significance. It wasn't just us out there chasing ghosts. We actually learned something about the area and the region that we live in. Now, you can draw your own conclusions about the evidence that you witnessed, especially the part with a tree. Again, that could be matrixing, but just when it comes to something like that, think about it just a little more and look into it and draw your own possibilities. Now, Boyd Parker Park is a state park, and the tree is registered in the Registry of National Historic Trees. Yes, there is such a thing. When you conduct an investigation in a park like this, please respect your surroundings and respect the park. There's a lot of significant historical facts about this place. There's a lot of artifacts. There's monuments, the tree itself, the ground itself is sacred ground. Blood was spilled there. So you go there, you conduct your investigation, but you have to be respectful. You know, that's pretty much all you can ask for, and you'll have a good time. So what I want you to do now is check out the following photos. Now, the photos, I'm not saying any of them are really paranormal. I don't know. But they're the ones that I also had no logical answer for. So I'm putting them out there for you, and who knows, maybe you can come up with something on your own. It's all about detective work in the paranormal business. Now, the EVPs, on the other hand, we have a couple of them, and they're pretty clear and they're pretty distinct, especially the one you're going to hear in a few moments that I believe is musket fire. Now, when the colonials came up here and they discovered the bodies of Boyd and Parker, they extracted their revenge on Little Beardstown by burning the village, the crops, basically everything. Now, you have to believe that they didn't just walk in unopposed to do this. I really believe that they had at least one skirmish line of fire. Is what you're about to hear time ripping apart at the seams? A little window, even though it's audio, of an event that happened in the past, a traumatic event for the Native Americans that were there. I'm going to let you decide on that one, but quite frankly, it's one of the best EVPs I've ever seen. This EVP takes place at the 115 point. Now, you're going to hear our investigator Chunk refer to the tree. Now at the 115 point, you're going to hear a voice whisper, tree. Check it out.
This is your tree. You died on this tree. Would you like to tell us anything?
Now the following EVP is one of the most amazing EVPs I think I've ever heard. It happens at the 242 point, and it sounds to me like musket fire. Now, what's very important to note here is that at this point we were kind of on break, and I had left the voice recorders up by the fence near the stone and the flag. Now, the girls were in one car, and us guys were in the adjacent vehicle. Now, the musket fire, or what I at least believe is musket fire, is distinct. There's almost no explanation necessary for it. We were there and our lights were trained on the monument at the time. There was no one anywhere near there. It was definitely a quiet and still night, and something like that we certainly would have heard of. So, I want you to give this one a shot. Give it a real good listen. It's distinct and it's loud, and I assure you that this it's something we didn't hear at the time until we reviewed the evidence. So, get ready for a rip in the fabric of time. Get ready for what I believe to be musket fire.
That'll confirm, tell us that you're actually near it. And the closer you get...
Did you hear that?
Yeah, dude, it was a sign.
Something just hit the sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that.
If that was you, can you please approach this little gadget standing on the rock?
Or hit the sign again. I heard that. That was distinct.
The closer you get to the device up there, the more lights go off.
Lieutenant Boyd, are you here with us tonight?
Whoa. Lieutenant Boyd's here. See that, Tony?
Okay. Is Sergeant Parker here with us tonight?
Nope. First K to it all night.
Which one was it, the left or
Left
right?
one. Left one. Okay. Lieutenant Boyd, if that was you, could you please make the K2 meter go off again, please? We're not here to harm you, scare you. This is your tree. You died on this tree.
Oh my god, did you hear that?
What?
Holy. Oh, is somebody touching the back of that?
No. Okay, that's drums.
Isn't that all woods back there?
Yeah, it should be all woods. What?
The answer to your question about your van being locked, no, it wasn't.
I'm bad. I'm sorry.
I only know that because Zach went in there and got a Pop-Tart.
Listen to that.
Sounds like Indian music.
Yeah, right? Are you shamed? It's also entirely possible that they might not understand English.
True.
Yeah, speak to
You know what I mean? If they're Native Americans, you can't assume that they all speak English. They could be,
Especially back in 1779.
they have their own language, so they could have no idea what we're trying to tell them.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's spirit Native Americans, we could be speaking gibberish, and they have
don't
no idea what I'm
understand.
talking
Exactly.
about. So
Yep.
I'm really not totally convinced that Boyd and Parker are true here. Because last time I was here, I was doing some provoking, and when I would provoke, you'd take pictures, there'd be orbs everywhere. And when I would stop provoking, or when I would just leave, it would kind of stop.
What was that?
What's going on?
Hey, tell them the lights in my car here keep turning on. Actually turning on. See it blinking on and off?
The lights?
Can't figure out why it's turning on and off.
lights in the car.
I don't see this.
We don't see anything.
No, my vehicle is turning on and off the light.
Dome light?
The K2 meter is running.
What about the K2?
K2 seems to be operating. Let's go over there then. Let's see. Let's gather our stuff.
All right, we're on our way back.
And we
Light in this vehicle, while it's off, they turn on.
You mean the headlights or a dome light?
No, this light, the dome light, all the lights went on. Right. K2 went on. So I made her go out and get it, and I checked the back trunk to see if anything was open. No doors were open.
Is the keys in the ignition?
Yeah, but it doesn't. You have to open the door to have the lights on, or you have to push the buttons to have them
Huh. That's interesting.
on. And yeah, and they were all going off.
And the K2 would go off at the same time and the lights came on.
Right.
interesting.
I don't
Okay.
think we all
Anything
can fit in the
else
van.
plugged in?
No. Why don't we take the key out of the ignition? And totally close the door. I want to see what the dome light does, if it just turns off or what. Do you guys have the dome light on now on purpose?
No,
or?
nothing.
Okay, close the door.
K2's going off. I'm getting
Well-
it.
Wow.
I'm getting it.
I think some could have may follow them in.
How many lights are going on?
It was
Three of
blinking
them.
2 to 3.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
Anybody
Okay,
getting
the
a
lights are
text
off.
message at all in there?
I've sent Chelsea, unless Chelsea's texting. We need to find out if she's texting. Because that will send a K2.
My
meter.
phone's
She's
in
saying
the car.
no.
Okay, your phone's in your car. They said no? Okay, lights are off. Keys out of the ignition. Hey, K2s, guys.
Back up.
My K2 just went off to red.
This?
It's doing it again.
Oh,
Spike.
my phone is completely off.
All right, ready? I'm starting to record.
I'm roaming.
Hold it out, Tone.
Oh
His
my
too.
God.
Okay. Boyd and Park Memorial Park. Investigators Brandon, John, Tony, Zach, Mike standing outside the vehicles getting K2 hits. Is there anybody here with us tonight?
If you're here, are you messing with the girls? Told you, spirits love women.
Yeah. I'm just figure out.
Okay, not getting anything no more. Whoa. Did it just do it? Let me check my phone. My phone's on, but
Yeah, but mine's roaming. So.
yeah, I shouldn't be getting anything.
I shut mine completely off, so I know it ain't mine.
Yeah, mine's.
It's actually spike too.
Okay, if that's you, can you make it go off again?
Okay.
Okay.
Just trying to hold them together so I can get them both on there.
Is it because of both of them are next to each other?
No, that wouldn't do it.
Can you tell us your name?
Hang on one second.
Okay, it takes care of that.
Okay.
Let me
sorry.
check your camera. Check this light. Check my camera. Your camera.
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, if that was you, can you do that again? You just did it a minute ago. We would like you to do that again for us, please.
Huh? That one? I know, it keeps going on and off, ain't it?
I hear something.
There was something
I
moving
heard
around.
something in the woods.
Yeah, I heard that.
The camera.
No, there's something moving around.
I smell a horse or something. I smell an animal.
So do I.
Yeah.
Like a horse is nearby.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're in the country, but I smell it strong right now.
Would you,
Yeah. I know last time I was here, you might even recognize me. I'm quite sure you didn't like some of the stuff I was saying. I was asking, saying things like, "Are you, you didn't get it done. They didn't talk. They didn't give away anything, and you did inhuman things too. Did it make you mad that you basically failed in torturing and getting information? And as an added bonus, they burnt your village." I'll tell you what, if I was a soldier, if I came across two of my soldiers in the condition you guys left those guys, I'd burn your village too. I'm not being mean, I'm not provoking, I'm telling you a fact. I have a hunch that some Native Americans speak English, so they won't be able to communicate with the English. In fact, you know what? The white Seneca was the one that spearheaded the torture, and his son was here. And of course, they spoke perfect English, so they would have had to been able to communicate with the English of Bluebeard's village, or Littlebeard's village.
Yeah,
So some of them would have had to have known English.
Because the British Columbian was here.
Right. So they would have had to know some English.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of getting westernized, I guess you would call something like that. So, that being said, do what you gotta do.